What's up, everybody? Apparently, Mark decided he wanted to duck out early today, right at the start, and I feel bad for Nestor because he's having to switch layouts like on the fly right now. What's up, Mark? Thanks for joining.
What's up, man? Sorry about that, man. I had a little bit of a technical difficulty there. I accidentally pressed the button and shut everything off.
Well, welcome back. Guys, it has been a lot longer than we anticipated, that's for sure. We had every intention of having a show before today, and clearly that did not happen. I think all of us are readily aware as to why. But Mark, any any lingering effects from Winter Storm 2021?
Luckily for me personally, at the house, nothing of any major sort, which we consider ourselves lucky. I did go without power for about 2.5 days, which kind of sucks. But we had we still had gas and water, so we were good there. Unfortunately, from as far as family goes, the in-laws didn't as so well as I did. So.
Ooh.
So we're dealing with that right now, but it's all good, man. Everybody's fine. Everybody's okay. Nobody, got hurt or, any kind of coldness or anything like that. So.
But that is good. That is good to hear. Glad, for the most part, everything has turned out all right, and wish your in-laws the best. But
how about yourself, man?
It was interesting. My parents, apparently their house is on the same grid as the water treatment plant for their neighborhood, and so or for their area. And so when there's a power outage of any significant period of time, they're usually not affected, especially if it's a forced power outage, because they're on the same grid. And so they had power Monday, Tuesday, even in the morning on Wednesday, and then when everybody lost power, they were out. And it was like 8 hours for them or something like that. Then they had power that night. And once I got power that night, I think I had one more outage of a couple hours, or a few hours, but that was about it. So, it wasn't too bad. But with a dog, it made it a little bit harder because I couldn't, I had to consider beyond just myself and think of my dog. And so I ended up spending Tuesday night actually over at my parents' house, which meant I drove over about Tuesday midday before the storm really started, or the cold really started hitting. And there were a couple of cold spots on the way that I wasn't anticipating, but handled fine. But my dog is not a traveling dog, to say the least. He loves to be out, but he doesn't like sitting still in the truck. But he did a good job when we got over there. That. Yeah, it was no big deal, but got over there, and then of course he was rambunctious, and he was very energetic, which was great for him, but sucked for me. But dealt with it, and I think I got maybe 30 minutes of sleep that night, and then eventually got back home to the cold, and then my power came back on at like 9:30, and it was an absolute godsend at that point because it had been out for a full 2 days at that point. But yeah, it was interesting. I mentioned in other chats how I kind of felt like this was very reminiscent of our time with Harvey. Thank you, Hurricane Harvey, for the memories. No power, no water in certain areas. I lost water for probably about a day and a half, 2 days. And part of that was because there were leaks in the complex, and they wanted to shut off the water to prevent any freezing pipes, which was, in retrospect, hindsight, probably the wise decision to make there. But we ended up having to wait a few extra days because they had to get plumbers on site to fix the leaks before they could turn water back on and turn hot water back on. So even once they lowered the boil notice, we still had probably a day or two before we really got fully going. But yeah, this week has been a lot better, which is good.
Obviously, yeah, this way's been a whole lot better. But it's crazy because obviously being born and raised here in Houston, Texas, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are as well. It's funny because we always complain and bitch about our winters not being true winters, and it'd be nice to have a little bit of cold, a little bit of snow every once in a while, things of that nature. And then you get hit with this, and you don't expect to lose power and do all this happening. It felt like, like you said, it felt kind of like we got hit by a hurricane for some reason, and it's crazy that such a big state, with so many people, would go through this like that, like there was somebody messed up somewhere.
It's interesting. It's interesting. I'm going to throw this one thing out there, and I know this is not what the show about, but I feel as someone in the response industry, it's important to keep this in mind for kind of the general public. It's important to remember that for all the talk about the Texas grid failing, this is the first time the Texas grid has failed in 5 years. To give you an indication of why that's important, there have been more failures in the California grid, which covers a lot of the Pacific Northwest and the Pacific Coast. There were more failures in the last year than there have been in the last 5 years for Texas. So, and more sustained failures.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we always hear about the rolling blackouts in California and things of that
Yep.
and things of that sort. And, so obviously they're a little bit more, I guess, used to this going on. But, for us, basically because, obviously, we with what we deal with in the summer with the heat, and people using the AC and the grid, you would think, for vice versa, it would work out the same way, for a storm like this. Obviously, it's not something that we experience on a normal basis. But going forward, it might be something that we do experience more times often than none, than what we did before. So, hopefully, unfortunately, the unfortunate thing is that people lost lives.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. It's one of those things. It's one of those things where, and I know we're getting a little bit ahead of off the topic. Obviously we're a soccer podcast, guys. Welcome everybody to here.
Hey, we're people first, man. We're people first.
But that's the unfortunate thing about it. One of the things, obviously, a majority of the people who lost were just people trying to find ways to get warm and cold and warm up their kids and things of that nature by, bringing in grills into the house or turning on the car while it's in the garage, which is a complete no. But people at that time were panicking and made that mistake, and unfortunately it cost them their lives. And it's a sad thing when people lose lives because of a mess up, basically, somewhere. So, thoughts and prayers to those people and their families. Hopefully everybody is doing well. And obviously I know a lot of people are dealing with busted pipes and ceilings caving down and roofs tearing up and things of that sort. So, guys, hopefully everything's okay. And health first. So.
Speaking of, the Dynamo and Dash Player Fund is inching its way very quickly to 30K. Their goal is 30K by the end of the day, which is amazing. And shows.
I'm pretty sure it was there, man. Because like when I saw the tweet that there were like a couple of dollars off from 29K, I did my part and made sure it got over to 29K. So just in case, and hopefully we get to the 30K, man. I saw that Zarik Valentine and other guys are planning to do a raffle with signed jerseys, Dash and Dynamo players once they reach 30K, and raffle off to all the people who donated, which is a great incentive, obviously too. I did my little part, Nestor, trying to help out people out there. But it's one of those things where it's great to see the athletes, especially the local athletes, get together, and obviously with the Astros doing their thing, the Rockets doing their thing, Dynamo doing their thing, Texans doing their thing. It's a great thing to see that sometimes, obviously this is a lot more than just sports, and it's good to see.
Yeah, so make sure, guys, if you haven't or you don't know about the fund, make sure you hit up Serge Zelaya. You can check him out in chat. He'll give you the link if you need it. Hit him up on Twitter. You guys know his Twitter account, most of you, so I don't need to share it. But hit him up on Twitter. He'll be happy to share it. And if you haven't seen it, you can also hit up Twitter on Zarek Valentine's Twitter account, or there's other ones I can't think off the top of my head. You can find the link to the Dynamo Dash Player Fund there to contribute to it. And again, definitely something worth doing. Another thing too, Sergio mentioned it in chat, and for those of you listening after the fact, make sure if you have time to hop on over to Christian Ramirez's Twitter feed and Memo Rodriguez's Twitter feed. They have a collaboration shirt that they have done with Sergio. You want to tell me who did that one, by the way? The T-shirt, like what group, what T-shirt company it was that they partnered with, because I don't remember. But it's the H-Town Strong. What is it?
It's called Teeing. I might be pronouncing it wrong.
You probably are. We'll wait for Sergio. But it's the H-Town Strong T-shirt, and it's Breaking Tea. There we go. Breaking Tea. There we go. Thank you, Sergio. Like I said, we would wait for Sergio. That's why. But yeah, H-Town Strong shirt. It's got the it was Sergio's idea. I saw some preliminary mock-ups and stuff. It was pretty freaking cool. But it's basically a Lion King T-shirt. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Go on Twitter, hit up Memo or Christian's Twitter feed. I know you follow him, so just check it out there. Make sure you know that
it's
proceeds from that.
It's funny.
Hold on. Proceeds from that also help by going to the Houston Food Bank. Now you can talk, Mark.
It's funny seeing the meme that they put out, obviously with, him cutting out, Christian Ramirez and Memo's, face and putting on Rafiki and Simba, right? And then actually seeing the final product. So it's kind of like seeing the protocol and then seeing the final product, how big of a difference it can be and it can look when you actually put some work into it. Sergio.
Oh, damn. Put some work into it. I mean, look, I'm going to tell you right now, Sergio put work in. Sergio's always putting work in.
I know he puts that work in, man. I'm just messing with him, man. Shout out to Sergio, man. That guy does a lot out there.
Look, I'm not saying that Sergio Zelaya is a graphics artist extraordinaire, but the dude definitely puts the work in, mostly in the gym to get himself, ripped, but he does put the work in. I'm just saying. With that being said, though, what'd you say?
I said I might have to join him over there pretty soon.
Oh man, him and Nestor, they are pumping hard, man. I'm sure they would. I'm sure they would dig a little friendly competition. With that, right, guys, let's real quick.
Talk about.
We do have a lot to talk about, which is what I was about to do. We are a little out of sync. It's like, again, it's been a hell of a 2 weeks. But first, before we dive into Dynamo stuff, I did want to shout out U.S. Women's National Team. They are currently playing right now against Argentina in the She Believes Cup. Currently up 4-0 on Argentina. What is interesting about this match is Argentina played Brazil, and I don't remember the exact score. I don't know if anybody, AJ might know, Nestor might know. I don't remember the exact score, but it was like 6-1, 7-1, something like that. It was pretty ridiculous. Maybe 6-0. Brazil was kind of on fire, or maybe 5-0. I don't know. It's been a few days. But the U.S. Women's National Team at this point will have won their first 3 matches of the tournament in the group stage, which is really good for them. And here's to hoping, 5-0. So here's to hoping they keep this streak going. Also of note, for our Dash listeners and fans, Christy Mewis did have a goal in the 41st minute. She's been very active playing for the U.S. Men's National Team. And of course, we appreciate Christy Mewis and her amazingness being on the Dash. But one other note, and this is pretty cool, guys. Generation Orange is part of the top 15, and you're going to laugh, but top 15 U.S. Women's National Team podcasts that you should definitely listen to on feedspot.com. We don't talk about the U.S. Women's National Team as much as we probably want to a lot of times, but we do try to get in news when we can. We do try to talk about it when we can. But we are featured as one of the top 15 podcasts on the FeedSpot list, and you can check them out at blog.feedspot.com/US women's or USWNT_podcasts.
Trust me,
I will be sure to tweet it out later this evening or tomorrow. show them some love. Make sure you guys check us out over there. It's really cool to be on that list, and we are extremely honored to be on that list. Just
Let's get
came
top
out of
10, man.
I mean, we're
I don't know
13th.
how
We're
that
not
happened.
far.
I don't know how that happens, but let's get top 10, man. You know, there's a lot of love for the ladies over here.
One of the interesting things is they do actually show Twitter follows for us, and we do have 627 Twitter followers. So thank you for that, everybody. I don't know where they came from, but thank you. Nestor said he lied about 5-0 for Brazil. It was actually 4-1. So well, at least the U.S. are keeping it right there with the 4-0. If they can hold them blank, then that's better than what Brazil did. But I digress again. Top 15 U.S. Women's National Team podcast you must listen to over on blog.feedspot.com/USWNT_podcasts. Thanks, guys, for having us on that list. We do appreciate it. And make sure you check out the whole list. There's a lot of great podcasts on there, actually, that are definitely worth checking out. But enough about the U.S. Women's National Team. Enough about the Dash. Enough about Christy Mewis. Oh, it's 5-0. Well, that came out of nowhere. Oh, Alex Morgan scored. That's pretty awesome. 84th minute. So U.S. Women's National Team absolutely taking it to the woodshed with Argentina. With that said, though, let's transition into some Dynamo talk. The reason why I'm sure everybody's really here, right? So, Mark, I don't know if you saw earlier this week, but there were some tweets that were bandied about yesterday and earlier this week with Glenn Davis, Lester Gretsch, and some other Dynamo followers, including our good friend Dynamo Insider, asking questions related to some rumors that they had seen about or heard related to possibly the Dynamo looking at a forward or a winger to bring in a forward or a winger. And it's interesting because Leicester confirmed they are looking. They have a target in particular. No information readily available on said player, none whatsoever. And trust me, certain people are trying to get info. What'd you say, Mark?
Oh, I'll announce it right now. Diego Costa.
It is not Diego Costa. Get the heck out of here. At least you didn't try to pull like what was the other one you guys were trying to talk about the other day?
He says Sergio Aguero.
Sergio Aguero.
I know Nestor love that. I would love it too. I mean, I'm a huge Kun Aguero fan, but but that's not.
It's fantastic. I would not argue with that. I'd take Gabriel Jesus as well. Jesus.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, I'd take just about anybody on that Man City team. Heck. So Dynamo are looking for a winger / forward, and I know a lot of people are probably sitting there going, why? We are pretty loaded compared to some other positions at forward / winger. But the reason why it came after I actually asked Lester a question on Twitter about the Nico Hansen situation, and Lester basically confirmed that Hansen and the Dynamo still have likely not reached an agreement, and it is clear because he's not on the roster page for the Dynamo any longer on their website that it's likely that Hansen and the Dynamo are not going to end up reaching an agreement at this point, so he may be headed elsewhere. So with Hansen, but probably on his way out, it does make sense the Dynamo would be looking to fill that empty roster slot with a similar type of player, or perhaps somebody to back up Ramirez as a true striker. Maybe a young number 10. We do have that U22 initiative we can talk about as well.
Or what about getting a player of quality and knocking everybody down a notch that we have currently?
You mean somebody to primarily somebody to supplant Ramirez?
Yeah, and everybody gets knocked down a peg. But I mean, why?
It's 7-0. Holy crap!
Damn.
Yeah, that went from 5-0 to 7-0 real quick.
No,
unless he mistyped. Did you mean 6-0, Nestor, or are you like a minute ahead?
Okay,
he failed. Okay. Oh, Nestor.
But no, man. I mean, obviously, it's nice to keep adding to the depth, especially up front. But the thing that worries me about depending on what kind of player they're bringing in is that I want somebody who's gonna be who we can count on, to score these goals, right? So, obviously I don't know any more than you do, or any obviously Lester said he doesn't know either. But it would be great for them to actually bring in somebody who you can see as, okay, that's the top dog. That's the top dog right there, you know? It would be interesting to see something like that.
Yeah, I don't want to dash your hopes, pun intended,
Yeah.
but I certainly do not see that happening. Let me ask you this question. I'm gonna really rearrange your brain here for a second. Would you wait until the summer window if it meant that you could get a better player then and not have that player now, not have a player now?
Yeah, most definitely I
Especially if you
would,
could get
because
that top dog, right?
yeah, most definitely I would, because the summer window is going to come quicker this season than it would in regular seasons, right? Because you're having a little bit of a late start, But yeah, I would most definitely will, because, like, say for example, like, if you have now you can go trot these guys out to see who is going to be your left winger, your right winger, and then if your main target in the summer is to bring that top scoring nine or whatever, and at least you have your 11 and your wingers, sorted out, by that point, hopefully. um so yeah, I would definitely wait, definitely wait, if that meant that we would have the extra funds to go get uh above average quality player for that
Yeah, so
for that.
I mentioned the U22 initiative, and that has been confirmed as being basically signed off by the ownership of the MLS ownership and the MLS competition committee slash budgeting committee, whatever they are, as part of the CBA as well. Which is that basically, if you don't, Jake, you missed all the U.S. Women's National Team talk and dash talk, talking about Christy Mewis and her goal earlier. Um,
Aloha to DJ Smook.
yes, sir, Jake. Also, thank you for your service, Jake. We do appreciate it, especially during the storm. Thanks for getting out there and battling through. I know you went a couple of days without sleep or very little sleep, and trust me, dude, we appreciate that more than words can express. But moving on from that, the U22 initiative in MLS. So basically, if a team, I'm going to kind of summarize this as easily as possible. If a team does not currently have three older, overpriced DPs, then they can bring in three younger, like 22 years old or below, essentially, players to play as DPs. They'll hit the salary budget as lower than an actual DP would, and there are some other mechanisms in there that come into play in different ways. It is possible for your LAFC or your TFC or other similar types of teams that spend a lot more. They can buy down with TAM existing DPs so that they can create an opportunity to bring in three U22 initiative level players. Another one would be Atlanta United, who already used one. And we've seen players coming into MLS already that fit that initiative. And my expectation, and I actually mentioned this when the signing of Bahamich happened, I expect that the Dynamo are intending and have intended to be, to be in that U22 category, to be part of that U22 initiative. Probably spent more than they would have spent, but because they knew the U22 initiative was right around the window or right around the corner, they were able to make that happen. But that also means that contrary to what I just said, I'm going to contradict myself immediately. It is possible the Dynamo could look to use that U22 tag in the U22 initiative on another young player. Hopefully, one that is a little bit higher quality. Someone like you said that could be top dog, or at least carries the clout as a young player to turn some heads. And hey, it doesn't have to be the best young player out there, but if it's somebody that can at least get some eyeballs back on the team, that definitely seems to be it seems to be the way the Dynamo need to conduct business right now. But interesting to say the least. With the U22 initiative, because it opens some other opportunities that weren't there previously. But we'll have to see how it all shakes out. I don't know all of the details around if you can use TAM to buy down a U22 player. I suspect you could. There were notes that I saw that you can use the U22 tag on homegrown players. You can use it on young players that you've brought in through the draft or through other initiatives. If a player is tagged as U22, you can keep them as a U22 until they're 20 until the season that they turn 25, basically. So that's pretty intriguing, to say the least, there as well, because it means you get 3 years with a player at a lower salary hit than would otherwise be the case. Um,
You know,
so go ahead.
it's an interesting initiative, right? Obviously, something new coming off from that CBA that was originally written, but then got rewritten and then got rewritten again. Um, you know, I think it's a great thing to bring young talent from other countries into the MLS and maybe not feel the burn of that player maybe not succeeding. You know, obviously, the only a certain amount of their cap or their salary would count towards the books, just like a DP would work. So I think it's a great initiative for teams, especially like the Dynamo, to go out there and probably and maybe use those three spots and maybe and obviously maybe two now because Bahamich is obviously going to occupy one of those spots to go out there and and find some young talent, South American talent or just young talent from wherever and bring them in, especially if they feel highly enough about that kid, because it's not going to be such a high risk now. It won't be as
Mm-hmm.
high as a risk. Imagine if they had this when like Lionel Miranda was on the squad. Maybe they would have gave him another year. Here in the Dynamo, and it would have worked out. And they would have seen what kind of talent he was. Because obviously we see what kind of talent he is now. Obviously playing in the being a starter in the Argentine league with Racing, and obviously during his time, I think he went to Tijuana for a little bit and played over there and Liga MX as well. So I mean, it would have been nice to have something like that back then when he came to the club. But I think it softens the blow, especially because you don't always expect young players, especially from other countries, to adapt quickly. Take for example like Mauro Manotas. It took him a little bit, but once he got going, he got comfortable and he got going. So it softens the blow for a team, especially a team that's cash strapped like the Dynamo.
Yeah, it provides an interesting mechanism for teams like the Dynamo, the lower spending teams. It actually increases the lower floor, meaning that there is a higher amount that teams have to spend this year as compared to last year, and even higher with the U22 initiative. It's just interesting to see teams and how they're going to approach it. Dallas is rumored linked to a European player. Um, Probably a pretty good player, but nobody that makes heads turn type of thing. But it'll just be interesting, like I said, to see where this all goes and how the Dynamo kind of shake out after this. Again, I think there is something to be said for the Dynamo maybe trying to approach this window to not spend too much in the attempt to keep the cost down for any potential new ownership that may come in during the 2021 season or by the end of the 2021 season. And I bring that up because I said not long ago, a few months ago, that the expectation was based on conversations, based on things that I've heard, and also based on things that have already been reported by The Athletic and otherwise, that Gabriel Brenner is looking to sell his majority ownership stake of the Dynamo. And this is important because there are potential buyers out there, and they want to create the highest value so that he can get the highest amount for his investment as a return on his investment. And so they are going to look to make it a high value type team. Now, that doesn't mean you spend a lot of money necessarily, but what it means is you do need to make sure from a business perspective to have a relatively decent profit yield. And, with everything that we've heard, the Dynamo have not been, because of attendance and things like that, they've struggled to have that high attendance return. And this season is gonna. We already know this season is gonna have limited fan capacity, at least to start the season. My expectation is probably a good chunk of the season will be that way. But that's going to make it all that much harder for Brenner to find that potential buyer that is a good fit, that's willing to pay what he wants to have paid for his majority stake in the team. But I
But
think
you
it
know what?
happens. I do think it happens.
But you know what? You know, if I say for example, if I was a buyer and I was looking into the Dynamo as a potential club that I want to buy, right? And obviously, I see all the books and I see the history and I see all the everything that's going on and see the attendance record is going down. And I think obviously anybody who's gonna buy a club or do any kind of business in sports looks at everything that's going on. You know, the social media outlook of the club, the obviously how the reports on the club media, everything that they can, any kind of information they can get about the club, right? And you can really see that the problem isn't really as big as a problem that one would think. I think that there is a lot of support for the Dynamo that want to be there at the stadium, want to fill up BBVA Stadium. It's just that a lot of Dynamo fans that are no longer going, aside from the COVID issues, right? It's just the disappointment and the frustration with the current ownership, and it's just their way of protesting against them, which is all within their rights, right? It's one of those things where you know my their dollar might mean a lot more to them than it does to me or to you. However they decide to budget their spending for entertainment or sporting events might differ from my spending on entertainment and sporting events. So, you know, with all respect to everybody, if that's the way you want to go about it, that's more than welcome. That's how you voice your opinion to club owners and owners of sporting teams in general. Texans fans, listen up. But but it's one of those things where if I was a buyer, it would be like, man, all I see on the social media feed, all I see is this, that the current owner isn't spending. There's not a player, there's not a marquee name, not marquee player. They're frustrated with, with the product on the pitch. But if I'm a buyer and I have the funds available, it can be something of a quick fix, especially if it's especially if it's a buyer who has the funding, maybe not like the Arthur Blank type funding, but somewhere in the middle would be an instant upgrade, and especially if he uses it towards the club, and just from that, and just from having a new presence, you'd be surprised how many of those fans who weren't attending might come back and attend.
Let me ask you a question. Like I like to do. So I'm gonna pose a hypothetical to you. Okay. Let's say that that Brenner does line up a buyer, and this buyer is another individual who has significant business holdings in Mexico, in Central America, and a few smaller business holdings here in the U.S. Let's say this individual is someone that is very similar to Brenner. He's very much he probably likely wouldn't be a visual presence at BBVA all that often, but when there, he would be willing to be on camera and smile and wave. Is that the type of owner you want, or is it more important that the future ownership be someone who is a public presence, someone who would be willing to, or someone's who would be willing to be the face of the franchise from the perspective, or the face of the club from the perspective of, I'm the owner, I'm going to tell you what's going on, I want some transparency, those sorts of things, kind of your Merritt Paulson type owner. Is that what you want, or your Arthur Blank? Yeah, you're Jerry Jones. I don't know. I wouldn't go that far. That may be going a little bit overboard, but
yeah. See, to be honest, from my perspective and in my opinion, I just want a product that I can support. Obviously, yeah. Obviously, if the owner is available to the public, to the media, whatever, that's great. But with all due respect, I don't really care to see the owner wave or do or be out there publicly or whatever. That doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is that he's invested into the city, into its community, and into the squad. That's what really matters to me. it's one of those things where, yeah, if we can hit a trifecta where he's investing into the team, he's a public figure, and and the town loves him, great, awesome. But if he's just investing into the community, into the team, and we don't ever see him, I, great, hey, have fun wherever you're at, honestly, in all honesty, I mean, him he doesn't do anything for me unless the soccer team is good, unless the club is good. That's the way he can get me, or supporter supporter X, to attend matches. Is his investment in the club, his willingness to spend, his willingness to improve the environment, the the game day experience, the quality, the product on the pitch, things of that nature. That's how he can win. That's how he wins me over. I don't care. I don't If I never see his face and I don't even know what he looks like, it doesn't matter to me.
I can buy into that, actually. I can completely understand where you're coming from. It feels like we've had the opposite of that. Someone who, although most people wouldn't recognize him if they saw him, is still, he has tried to be, at least lately, a bit more of a public presence in terms of just visibility at the stadium and visibility during matches and that sort of thing. I almost feel like we kind of had the opposite with him in terms of, public presence, but not really from a public perspective investing a lot into the club, or not
But do
having
you
the
think that's more
capability to invest a lot in the club.
Do you think that's more like the people in his front office, or the people that he confines into, who run the Dynamo for him, that tell him, hey, Gabriel, hey, G, we need you to show up a little bit, because a lot of the fans, the social media, this and that, are saying that you don't care, you're not there enough, just, hey, go into the owner's suite for, maybe a game every month, show out, wait to the people, wait to the crowd out there, things of that nature, because let's be serious. I mean, the last couple of years have been kind of downers, and things of that nature. And it seems from afar, especially if you're not a Dynamo supporter or a Dynamo fan up close like we are, we kind of know what's going on, and and we try to try to think about what's going on with the club, and why this is not happening, and why we can't achieve certain goals or whatever. But if you're just a soccer general fan from afar, you look at it and you're like, man, why would anybody want to support this club? This club's been bottom table team for X amount of years. So they really haven't done anything, the last couple of, let's say, the last 5 years, maybe, except for that win that cup title.
I mean,
But
we're at 7 years at this point, essentially since the 2013 season.
yeah,
Really.
so I mean, obviously, you can't garner new fans, you can't garner new supporters and things like that. If you're not successful, man, and for new supporter groups like the Surge, for example, to appear, you know, out of all this, and to still have passionate fans out there, it's a blessing for them, because obviously, like I said, it's one of those things where if I really felt like, man, this club isn't really doing their all, why should I invest the little money that I make, little money that I have on the side? Why should I invest in season tickets? Why should I invest on Dynamo gear? Why should I invest on going to BVA Stadium and stand there in 100-degree weather on the midsummer day, to go watch a team that's going to get beat 3-0 on their own home turf?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. You brought up a number of very good points there, and these are things that potential future ownerships are going to have. Owners are going to have to consider. Potential future buyers are going to have to consider. And believe me, if they're looking at the Dynamo, it's not just about the club. Again, a huge part of the valuations of MLS clubs comes from that partnership with some, in the broadcast rights deals and things like that are all kind of tied into that. But um, again, I think we're at a point where Brenner is likely going to sell this season. Either during the season or at the end of the season. And I, for one, am ready to welcome a new owner with open arms. I
Yeah,
like
I mean,
you.
Yeah, I mean, just for the simple fact that unfortunately, the whole if you say Gabriel Brenner's name in front of Dynamo fans, it's going to be a lot of negativity more than any positive things coming out, right? So just a change in that scenery from the very top might bring in fans, might bring back some of the people who we haven't seen in a while in BBVA, just because of that simple thing. And then on top of that, then it'll be the duty of the new ownership group or ownership person or whoever, if it's a single person or if it's an ownership group, to show that they are willing to invest in this club and into this community. Like I said, it's one thing to just buy a club just to buy a club. People buy clubs all the time. Hey, I think Ryan Reynolds bought a club in Wales, I think. Okay, cool. They got the money, they go buy clubs. People got money, they go buy clubs. But it's one thing to just buy a club. It's another thing to buy a club and be invested into its community, its fans, its supporters, and to actually want to have a winning mentality, instead of just speaking on it, of it, actually doing something to achieve it.
Yeah, so they actually purchased a Welsh soccer team. Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, both went in to become joint owners of Welsh team, the Wrexham AFC, from the Welsh League, which is also one of the world's oldest professional soccer clubs. And
I think the third oldest, I think. That's what
they
they said.
currently play in the English fifth tier of soccer over there.
I mean, but just think about it from that notary. Ryan. Everybody knows Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool. Green Lantern, whatever. Just from that itself, think about how many eyes have gone onto that small little club. Now. I mean, I've never heard of the club beforehand. But yeah, I saw somewhere on Twitter or wherever that that they purchased the club. I looked into it, and now I know the club exists.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting to see things like that because we've seen similar things from various uh, celebrities recently. They're starting to get into, and take other opportunities with soccer around the world globally. I mean, obviously you have Kevin Durant, who's part owner of Philadelphia Union. You have, James Harden, who is a minority owner of the Dynamo. And the Dash. You've got other athletes that have, Steve Nash, former retired athlete who's now head coach of the Brooklyn Nets, who has a minority stake in one of the clubs and also is a huge Spurs supporter. Had to sneak that in, of course. And then, other various athletes, star athletes, superstar athletes. LeBron James bought into, I think it was Liverpool.
Liverpool, yep.
So it's been a consistent theme, and I think we'll continue to see that where it is a smart investment right now to invest in global football, global soccer, because it is a good return on your investment, no matter how long it is that you intend to hold onto the investment. So again, I don't think we should be surprised if it happens during the season, mid-season, or if an agreement is reached mid-season and we see leaks and rumors about it, but they make it clear that nothing is likely to happen until the off season. Don't get discouraged by that. That likely just means an agreement was reached and it was in the best interest of both owners to wait until the off season to make the change. I think that's plausible as well. But again, highly likely, as highly as I could probably tout this, highly likely the Dynamo will have new ownership. And another reason to believe that is the case is actually tied to the disconnect that has happened from RGV the Dynamo pulling out of paying for their technical staff, paying player salaries down there, and things like that. That is a huge chunk of change off their books. I mean, that's I say huge. I mean, that's a $2 to $3 million per year investment plus additional beyond that. That's off their books now. So that's what it is. Thank you, Sergio Nash, part owner of Vancouver Whitecaps and Mallorca as well. Oh yeah, Stu Holden. That's right. Yeah, Stu's part owner of a team.
Okay.
DMB is part owner of Indy 11, I believe. Yeah, Indy 11. Pretty sure. And we see more of that happening. Former players becoming, investors in their former teams or in other clubs around the U.S. And I just think we continue to see that happen. So I think now is the time for Brenner to sell. I think he's probably going to get the highest return on his investment this year. I think if he waits too much longer, it's not going to be the value of the team is going to drop a little bit, to some extent, just because of the way that sort of thing works. But again, I guess we'll see. There is one other thing that I wanted to bring up, and we have about 15 minutes, so I figured now's a good time to bring it up. We can talk about it. Eric McHugh, that's the Dynamo homegrown player who is a central defender who played for RGV last year and the year before that. He is being loaned out to Charleston Battery on a season-long loan. Charleston Battery play in the USL Championship. They're considered one of the older teams and one of the more established teams in the USL Championship. They're considered one of the perennial favorites year over year to compete for the championship. So going to a place where he certainly will have opportunity to develop and certainly will have opportunity to play. It falls on him to show that he is good enough to play, and that is going to be one of those things that can Eric McHugh prove that he is good enough to compete at the USL Championship level, because thus far he has not proven that to be the case. And this is a player that was relatively highly touted when he was signed. And we certainly can talk more about, about that as well. But I just want to make sure we snuck that in while we had a chance, because that news dropped today as well.
Let me ask you a question. I know we got a little sidetracked about the ownership, maybe it's being the Dynamo being sold, but we were speaking about obviously the Dynamo maybe looking to bring another forward in. If you only had one more transaction to make for the season before the season starts, what position are you looking into to improving right now?
Either winger or forward. I am honestly looking at that position. And here's why, before you ask the question. Here's why. We drafted a player that I believe is ready to start at center back, or at least ready to take over center back partway through the season from Minor, who could start opposite of Tim Parker. And that is Ethan Bartlow. In my opinion, Ethan absolutely is pro-ready. He was considered the most MLS ready player in the draft when it came to center backs. I think he's got the physical talents to be able to handle it. I think he has the talent pushing forward to be able to do it. And here's the kicker. You have a player like Tim Parker that you can pair him with, who can not only mentor him, but also keep him accountable early on with all the hype he has already. And it is a perfect pairing, because Tim Parker can afford to sit back just a little bit more and be that true stalwart defender in the center, and let Ethan Bartlow be that player that moves forward into the attack a little bit more, knowing and having the comfort to know that next to him is Tim Parker, who's going to shut down whatever players come, whatever attack comes his way. It's going to require a little bit of the outside backs to be, a little bit more patient and a little bit more intentional when they go forward. It's going to require the midfield and the center of midfield to not give the ball away in transition as much. They're going to have to learn to be more possession-oriented. But again, he's the type of player, Ethan Bartlow, that can step into that position. And in my opinion, he is much more MLS ready than Eric McHugh is. And I don't think at this point, unless you bring in a Salcedo, that you're going to find a center back on the market that is going to come in for the amount that you want to pay, that's going to be able to be a starter.
Would you be disappointed if he's not your starter day one?
No, like I said, I suspect we see Minor and Parker out there as the initial first team center backs, starting 11 center backs to start the season, and I'm okay with that. But I do think that a couple months into the season that we see Bartlow take that position and start to play a little bit more, giving Minor that rest that his aging body certainly could use.
I'm gonna throw a name out there to go alongside Tim Parker instead of having Minor Figueroa, which obviously I think it could be a high possibility, to start off the season as a starter again, before, just to give Bartlow a little bit of time to get adjusted to the league. But kind of the forgotten guy, man. You know, Bizama. You know, I think he can do a job for us. You know, as a center back. You know, obviously Valentine is going to hold down that right back spot now. Um, so maybe Bizama can be somebody who can, you know, maybe get some time in the center back. You know, I don't know if it's one of those things that Tab might have in mind, you know, to try to give him some minutes on the pitch. You know, because obviously it's an investment that the front office made to bring him in. You know, he is a player of quality. You know, from what we've seen, you know, him being a Chilean international and playing for the national team, so he does have some talent. Otherwise, he wouldn't have made it to the national the senior team. And it would be great to see him finally, you know, put that talent on the pitch and not be injured. You know, hopefully, you know, let's not jinx him. But you know, it would be nice to see him on the pitch, you know, and show us why they brought him in and why he was a player to be considered for the Chilean national team. You know.
Absolutely. I think that Bisama is a decent fit there. But you know, it is a change of position. It's not a natural change of position to necessarily go from fullback to center back. And the main reason for that is, as center back, your responsibility is a lot more. Bisama, you know, his responsibility as an outside back is to push into that attack frequently, and is to, you know, return and cover. Whereas with center back, you're not trying to cover; you're trying to, you know, quell the counterattack quickly. So I think it's a little bit different, but. Yeah, Sergio brings up someone that I actually would consider seeing as a center back, which is Sam Junqua. I think the kid has the physicality to be able to play that position. I think the kid has the football intelligence, watching him having played, that he could be a transition player into a center back that would fit there relatively well. And again, that physicality is a big thing in MLS. You want somebody that's not going to be pushed around by the stronger forwards, and there are a number of them in MLS. And you know, but here's the thing that I like about this offseason is we can talk about these things right now, and talk about these players that we could see transitioning into that position. But the fact is I wouldn't have been able to say that 1 or 2 years ago. We knew who our starters were. And I actually am okay with not knowing who that second starter is out of the gate, because it means that
It's open. It's open for competition. And the best player is going to come out. Whoever comes out the preseason will deserve that spot.
low. Fuenmayor, we can't leave him out of the mix. You know, like you brought up, Bisama could potentially play there. Junqua could potentially play there. You know, there are opportunities there for players to take. And I say this all the time, that if you have the right players that can play well together, that can overcome any player's star quality, with the exception of the absolute best players in the world. Your Sergio Aguero's, your Lionel Messi's, your Cristiano Ronaldo's, your Zlatan Ibrahimovic's, you know, your players like that, your Kevin De Bruyne, your Harry Kane's, your Heung-min Son's, your, trying to think of somebody on Arsenal, but I'm blanking. Aubameyang.
Martin Odegaard, Saka. You know, anyways.
Holland. We can't forget Holland either.
Yeah. No, but you know, it's interesting to see, because you know, obviously, when I think what Tab is looking for in players is players who can play different positions in all aspects of the pitch. You know, you know, because you also got to take in consideration things that might happen on the field during the game. A player might get sent off, or an injury that you didn't expect. You know, might happen where, you know, you might need somebody to play a position that they're normally not fit for, or they normally do not play. But it's gonna be interesting to see what it is. And like I said, I like the fact that there is competition for that second center back position, because, you know, like I said, whoever comes out of preseason showing that they earned it, then that means they really earned it. You know, so it's open competition, and I think players appreciate the fact when they can actually win a spot, not just let it be said, you know, hey, everything's available. The best players are gonna play, blah blah. It sounds great in theory, but a lot of things go into why certain players play more than other players. And it's not just because the player is better than the other player. Unfortunately. So
Absolutely, yes. Guys, we're going to end just a few minutes early. Intent was to go about an hour, but I think we're kind of winding down anyways. So we're going to cut out here. But thank you for tuning in. We do appreciate it. As always, guys, make sure to hit us up on Twitter. Mark is at Chase Segovia. You can see it under his name on the Twitter feed, on the video feed. Follow me on Twitter at Sean Ringrose. You can see mine on the thing as well. And then also follow our Twitter account at Gen Orange Radio. We tweet from there fairly regularly when we can. Of course, if you're listening to us after the fact, follow us on Twitter, twitch.tv/Generation Orange. And of course, follow us on Anchor, anchor.fm/Gen Orange. If you do happen to miss an episode, we will be uploading audio onto there as regularly as we can so that you can grab the latest episode in audio-only podcast format and listen to it in your car. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We do appreciate it. And remember, guys, hold it down.